Holly said, my name is Adam Farhood. I'm the Director of Information Technology with MS Consultants. I just want to thank again ACEC Ohio for organizing these calls. I also want to thank all of you for just continuing to join these calls and making such a good conversation. I hope that you guys have been getting value out of these because, I know I have. Well, you know the drill. We heard the technical difficulties earlier. If you're, not talking to the group, just hit mute. If it's your first time talking, state your name and what company you're with. The chat function has worked really well the last few calls we've had, and I really enjoyed reading some of those comments, especially on the last call. I think Ram had some really good investment advice. So please keep posting questions and have discussion in the chat window. I'll try to see what you guys are typing to help, guide the conversation, and I'll try to pull questions and comments from there throughout the call. The state of Ohio is starting to loosen our stay-at-home restrictions, but I'm sure we're not all rushing to get back to the office. So we'll have to continue to support this new work from home practices we've been perfecting over the past 2 months. I believe one of the lasting effects of this COVID pandemic is that it has accelerated our technology, all the infrastructure that goes with it. And I think our organizations are really starting to have trust in them. Maybe it's even changed forever what we think of as the office, how and where we work. So I'd really love to hear from all of you guys how this work from home transition is going. And, we have a lot of areas to cover. So let's just jump in. Looking back at it is 2020. So I want to start by asking, was our technology infrastructure prepared to adequately address employees working from home? What do you guys think?
Hey, Adam, this is Mike. I just joined. Can you repeat the question real quick?
I was just saying, looking back, it's easy to see that's 2020, but was our technology infrastructure prepared to adequately address employees working from home?
So a couple of years ago, I sat in a strategic planning session with our upper echelon. And somebody had this bright idea that we were going to hire all of these remote employees. And at the time we had, I think, 40 megabits worth of bandwidth coming in, and, a firewall that would have never handled 20, let alone 200 employees for VPN connectivity due to throughput. And of course, at that point, I threw up the red flag and says, "Whoa, wait a minute here. This isn't going to work." And we dove into it a lot harder 2 years ago and made the decision to invest in technology. So over the last 2 years, we had made significant investments in technology, and we had just completed most of those upgrades and advances. Now we have gig pipes into the sites. 500 megs is the minimum we bring in on fiber. High-end firewall, lots of VPN capability. So we were prepared, but I think a lot of it came out of strategic planning 2 years ago. So what I would suggest is that if you have the ability to get involved with those planning sessions with your upper group, that you should be a part of that early on. And you can kind of help drive those things and drive budget towards that infrastructure. So we were very fortunate, and we were very lucky that when Monday came around and they said, "Hey, tomorrow everybody's working from home," I was like, "Okay, here's how you connect to the VPN." And, we sent out, instructions to everybody on connecting to the VPN, and it seemed to work fairly well. But if I had not have sat in on that strategic planning and we were running just kind of status quo, we probably would have been caught with our pants down.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point, Michael. That's super important to plan ahead. But I'm wondering, did some of the smaller firms that may not necessarily have, you know, IT sitting at the table helping making some of those decisions with leadership? How did they, you know, how prepared were you guys? Okay. Well, how about some of our support systems that they have in place to be able to support it, like help desk? Were they properly configured, you know, and organized to help enable this?
So again, here at Osborne, you know, we do have IT staff. We do have a help desk system. We use BMC's Track It, and it is web-based, so it's basically a web browser, and that seems to have worked really well for us. I'm not sure what everybody else is using, but that does work fairly well for us. Able to track and take care of the tickets as they come in. We're not seeing a lot of things come in. I think our workload has kind of dropped off. For the first few days when everybody went remote, it was a little high because, you know, people didn't read the instructions we gave them on how to connect to the VPN. So we had some issues, but we addressed all of those. And now that they've kind of learned and they've been doing that for the last couple of months, it's been pretty good.
Great steak and potato. Yeah.
Yeah.
6 years so terrible for you.
Yeah, it's like
crazy.
Let me see if I remember my password here. Do you want to
So-
smoke?
I do not.
I mean, that
but
brings up a good point. Like,
Fair.
there's some feedback. I don't know if it's coming from Ben or I don't know. Ben,
I
do you
think
have
it's
something
coming
to
from
say?
Ben, yeah. He's muted now.
Well, so I'm curious about, you know, have we had to implement any new technology solutions or services in order to address this new work from home dynamic? Anything anyone wants to share about, you know, something that they didn't do before that they're doing now?
How's it going? This is John at DLZ. Yeah, we've done a lot of stuff in a short amount of time. We had to upgrade our Sonic Wall VPN because the capacity was not nearly enough. We were already looking at a zero trust solution and switching over to Zscaler. So we deployed that for our BYOD because we were not set up for a lot of these engineers to work remotely. Since then started deploying Citrix, and that seems to be going pretty well for us. So yeah, lots of new technology and lots of spending in a short amount of time.
Yeah. Well, has the current, you know, work from home shift forced the creation of new processes or efficiencies within our companies that we, you know, haven't had to do before?
The one thing we've been asked to do is kind of keep tabs on who's connected to the VPN, when, for how long, to make sure the production staff is actually working. So that's one of the additional tasks that we've kind of added to our plate. Fairly simple, run the report, clean it up a little bit, and ship it up to management.
That's actually, that's one thing I think I've been getting asked a lot. Leadership keeps asking me, and it's just really the big question about this whole thing, because I think this is a grand experiment that we're not used to, but they just keep saying, are we really more or less efficient working at home? And I don't know what you guys think.
My personal opinion is I think we're as a group, we're probably less efficient at home and we should be back in the workplace.
Well, how can we measure that, you know, like either the collaboration or efficiency accurately to even know?
I think a lot of it's going to come down to the billable work that may have normally taken 1 or 2 hours to complete that's now 4 hours on somebody's timesheet.
Yeah. I think
that's about the only way.
The feeling I'm getting is it's not so easy just to look at staff utilization or billable hours. It seems like it's taking longer for the business to figure out, you know, are we more efficient or less efficient? I just don't know if anyone else is being asked these type of questions and going through that.
I think that's
This is
something.
Zutshi from CTL. I would just add on to what he said. So at CTL, we were pretty much organized even before all this started because we had many people working on VPN. As far as the utilization is concerned, we have the program developed which automatically calculates the utilization as well as the productivity, and it correlates it to the billing. So fortunately for us, we have the software design which takes care of finding out. So we don't track how many hours the person was logged into VPN or how many hours he was onto the system. We basically, at the end of every week, we just check the productivity and with the utilization and the billing. And that gives us an average. And we are always able to compare it with what it was the previous year or the previous month to give us a better idea.
Well, I'm curious, Ranjan, does that mean, is collaboration impacted according to your numbers either positively or negatively then with this current environment?
I would say we would get a better idea because we are looking at the 3-month report. That would be after end of May. And then we'll come to a conclusion because at this point, it is still too early to decide whether it did help or it did not help. There should be at least 3 months of data in it to come up with a concrete solution, you know, that it did or it did not.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else know if this is, you know, impacting us positively or negatively?
Adam, this is Chad Balzer with Bearbecker. I think it's really a mixed bag from what we're seeing. I have some users who are telling me they're much more efficient, that they love the freedom of working from home. They also tell me that it really comes down to the fact they still have to get a job done by a deadline. So, but it does allow them to go out and if it's a nice day going to walk in, but they end up working more or longer hours than they do when they actually go into the office because they don't have the distractions of their personal life. So that's kind of what I'm hearing, but I have other users who say they can't wait to get back in, that they can't work at home. And it's really just a real personal thing, but we don't have any metrics really to measure that from until many months out when we go back and look at the hours versus the amount of billable work produced.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I still think there's some distractions at home, you know, whether you have, you know, pets, kids, husband or wife, you know, that's got a honey-do list for you, and, you know, they think you're at home, so you're not working because you are home. So no matter where you go, there's going to be some distractions. They're just different.
Yeah. So, you know, that leads me to my next question is, what do our companies look like in the coming months? Is this the new normal?
Our plan at Osborne is to bring, you know, everybody that was in the office back in the office. We did have some, you know, people that do work remote on a regular basis, and they're just, you know, they're not here locally. They're in Washington, D.C. or wherever they are. And they will continue to work remotely, obviously, because they're just not here. But our goal is to try to get everybody back into the office again and kind of go back to the way things work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How about other people? Is that the same kind of story that we're, you know, trying to get back into the office?
Yeah, this is Chiranjeev from CTL again. No, we are not going to bring people back to the office. We have in fact put in place a work from home policy, and it is going to be the manager's responsibility to track the productivity and everything else that is on the policy. So we are going to allow people to work from home on request, and there are certain conditions they need to meet. To answer your question, yes, this is going to be the new norm, and we need to accept it because this is how it is going to be in the future, it looks like. And we do not know how this virus is going to return or not return. So might as well get prepared for it and start thinking about it. And we are conducting a fair trial to see how it works. We have not had any issues till now. We have people already working from home and we have not had any issues. We are going to watch this. We are going to see how the managers manage their employees and then take a call from that.
You know, the one thing I keep thinking about is, you know, for those of us who are going back into the offices, there's going to be a lot of challenges to bring them back in after this whole COVID event. And a lot of stuff I see is like, you know, what technologies do we have to aid in maybe all the paperwork and you know, administrative tasks that have to bring people back in. So I don't know if anyone in IT groups are being challenged with some kind of, you know, workflow for paperless workflows to collect temperatures or to, you know, document any ailments. Are you guys being asked to try to implement these kind of things?
So it did come up, and like you said, they talked about paper and a pencil. You write your temperature down when you came in, and then somebody said, well, that kind of defeats the purpose because everybody's handling the pencil and everybody's handling the paper. I did have a share from, I'm trying to think who sent it to me now. Gateway Engineering over in Pittsburgh. Dragan is the IT director there, and he sent me over a kiosk which will use facial recognition and take your temperature, and if it goes over the alert, it would send an email to HR and notify them that somebody came in with a high temperature, and you know, at that point then HR would address it and probably ask them to go home. I do have an example of that. If anybody wants to see it, I can share it with you. I can pull it up on the screen if you want to see what it looks like, but I thought it was a pretty neat piece of technology.
Yeah, I think I'm going to paste a link for one. Are you talking about, I was looking at one of those too, the HP Meridian temperature verification system had facial recognition. I posted a link to CDW for one that we got sent, but I think that was a pretty good technology. They're about $2,500, does facial recognition, automatically logs all that information without touching anything. Yeah, but I mean, it's the other big problem I think that, you know, we've had just, and I don't know if you guys have experienced this. I know we had this issue in our office. When everyone left the office, they were grabbing equipment off of their desks left and right. I mean, they were taking monitors, they were taking cords that maybe they needed or didn't need, they were taking keyboards and mice. Are you guys planning and worrying about stuff like that? Yep, that's the one I was looking at.
There's quite a few of these out on the market now.
Yeah.
From different manufacturers.
Yeah, this particular one's about $3,100. It takes about 2 weeks to get it. So we had a discussion on Tuesday. Upper management here did, and you know, we're not gonna do it now, but we may end up moving to this, you know, in a week or so, depending on how the first week goes.
Yeah. Now, are you guys buying one of those for, I mean, it starts to get pricey if you have to buy one for each one of your locations.
Well, if we buy one, it would probably be in Cleveland, and then we would probably look at our other locations, maybe in Florida as well.
Well, yeah, no, like I said, I was curious about just what are you guys doing about the rush to go home, and did people grab things off of their desks to take it? And now that there may be some kind of hybrid situation that we have to be in when we go back to work, and I don't know what that looks like, and I don't know what the exact guidelines. I think today too, the governor is going to put together some more guidelines for opening up restaurants and other businesses like that. But, you know, what are you doing about, are we buying new equipment? Are we asking people to bring that equipment back in that they may have taken home to work, but they may have to still continue to work from home? So I'm just curious to see how people are handling that kind of situation.
Yeah, we haven't bought any additional equipment. If, you know, if they come back into the office, we're going to expect them to bring that stuff back and then, you know, work from here. I think the catch is going to be is to, you know, in a week from now, are we still going to be in the same situation we're in, or are the numbers going to spike and then they're going to send everybody back home again? So it's kind of a tough decision to make because you don't know whether or not we're going to start moving back towards whatever the normal is, or are we going to have to revert back to the work from home again? And I don't think anybody can answer that right now.
Well, yeah, that kind of is my next question. Has this current COVID pandemic shift created a more positive view of work from home?
I think it definitely has. I know we've been asked to possibly put together a survey to see if this lasts for another month, what additional equipment users might need at home. If most of our users did grab at least a monitor, docking station, keyboard and mouse, but some of them didn't take both their monitors. Some of them didn't take additional equipment with them. So we're going to try to identify those users and get them additional equipment just to try to increase their productivity if it lasts another month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I'm just wondering if, for this work from home, what's working, what's not working? Does anybody have any funny stories?
Yeah, we did have one person who was working from home, remoting in, and decided to come into the office for one day and decided to use RDP to get into her desktop at the office and couldn't understand why it wouldn't work. Of course, it was the desktop she was sitting at that she was trying to remote into. So that was a good one.
We've had users who have used their headsets from home for going on 2-3 weeks, not realizing that they left their USB part of it in the office, but they still wore the headset during the meetings. We did do a survey of people's work from home, and this is Dan Benjamin from Bergman in Rochester, New York. We have an office in Ohio, but we did a big company survey just last week, and the results were 95% satisfaction with working from home. Mm-hmm. Things people were missing were printing, plotting, but pay me, give me money for my ink cartridges at home. Those types were in the 5%.
Well, kind of changing gears a little bit, focusing on our IT groups, I'm wondering, have we had to change our IT departments because of this work from home shift?
We haven't changed anything because we've had the ability to support people and work from home many years in our IT department, which is very small for firm size.
We've done a couple of things at DLZ. We've enabled Teams, set up team support chats for everybody to use, and we also created a hotline that we kind of pass the number around amongst the team. Hotline hasn't been used, but Teams certainly is used.
Mm-hmm. A lot more remote meetings. Zoom, heavy use of Zoom, heavy use of Cisco Jabber for our internal collaboration. Those things kind of stepped up significantly. But as far as the support goes, the support for us has remained about the same.
Mm-hmm. Well, do we have enough staff to support this new work from home dynamic? Because I think that adding that last mile to our issues, it feels like, from my perspective, that we are dealing with a lot more issues that people are having with their home setup that we haven't had to support before. And I think it can be stressful on some of the help desk support groups that we have in our companies, because we're dealing with a lot of unknown variables. So I don't know if people are feeling like they need more staff, or even has anybody had to hire someone during this?
Haven't had to hire, but all of our projects that we were working on are pretty much been delayed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think in the beginning, it was a little rough, like I said, until we got everybody connected and they understood what their home limitations were as far as bandwidth goes, and so forth, compared to what we have, in the front door here. But overall, I think they get that it's not like you're sitting here at your desktop. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, shifting a little bit, the other big issue, from some of our past calls, and having the discussions, how we had to rush to get everybody, working. And I think that John was saying it best, that a lot of our projects have been, put to the side, any new initiatives that we've been working on. But one thing that's super important is our cybersecurity. And I know we had to do a lot of crazy things to get people, working remotely. So I'm wondering if we buttoned up all of our security, since we had to rush to get everyone to work from home.
Yeah, we've been kind of doing an ongoing process, slowly but surely, with tightening up security. That's been a priority of mine for a long time since I started here, because it was pretty lax. We made some requirements on this work from home stuff about having, antivirus and, none of the freebies that you can just download and say, I got it. We didn't block anybody from coming in, but, we certainly made it clear that we want to see that if we have to remote in and support you. And when we did remote support issues with people, we looked for those things.
Mm-hmm. Are we seeing any increase in, the ransomware, malware attacks on our system? And then are we able to respond and recover from those easily?
I think we've seen a lot more phishing attacks through the email. Luckily, the spam filter's grabbing them up. But the alerts that I'm getting from the spam filter are indicating there's a lot more phishing going on.
Yeah, are other people seeing the same thing?
Yeah, we're seeing that as well, and we're just ramping up our know before training for all of our employees, even from home.
Yeah, no, that's cybersecurity training is really good. Or other people, I don't know how different organizations are doing it. I think a lot of people are probably saying billable work only, but that training and stuff, it's one of those chicken and the egg arguments. It's like you're too busy to do training during our regular hours, but now we don't have a lot of billable work. So are we still doing, different training like cybersecurity training, or, even other things for skills for our IT groups, or even company-wide? Is that something that people are doing right now?
So it's too important not to. We're in the process of deploying Know Before. It's an interesting company that sets up and uses spam type phishing emails, provides training to end users. We partnered with the company Konica Minolta as well, called All Covered. So they actually will provide quarterly security training as well as the phishing tests. So we're gonna try it. We should have some results maybe next month.
Yeah, it's always a tough thing to be able to do that, especially right now where billable hours seem to be the most important thing. So I was curious to see how much training we're doing during this, during this time.
The other thing I saw that kind of popped up in the spam tough is, for a while there, I was just getting these emails and they would just say test from a Gmail account. They were always from a different person at Gmail. And then about 2 weeks later, I got a whole bunch of hits on the spam filter where they were sending in the UPS tracking virus thing where you'd click on the link and it would download the virus. I saw a bunch of those. The spam filter grabbed them up, but it was interesting to kind of see how that was, being initiated, where they were kind of fishing for live addresses. And if they didn't get a bounce back, then they knew it was a live address, and went ahead and, sent emails to it. So, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah, no, I think what it seems like what a lot of people do is they'll, bulk attack companies and kind of build a profile.
Profile, yep, exactly what they were doing.
You look at LinkedIn and they can get your CEO. I mean, we see every single day, looking at our spam filters and some things still get through. We get emails coming from the CEO asking people to buy, $10,000 worth of iTunes cards, and we still get those every single day. But some of them, they're getting tricky when they start jumping in the middle of compromising accounts and jumping in the middle of conversations. It gets difficult to know which ones are real and which ones are not real.
Right.
Well, looking at different security things, we've seen how many problems Zoom has had in all the security stuff. How are people feeling with Zoom? We're using Zoom today, and I think it's probably one of the better platforms to have these kind of meetings, especially large group meetings. But I'm wondering, are clients pushing back on using Zoom, or what's the adoption of Zoom look like within our ACEC Ohio forum here?
We're still using it pretty heavily. They have stepped up to the plate on their security issues. The first step obviously is, admitting they had a problem, and they did that. I think they brought in the right people to address it, and I know they've been working to correct it. There have been some updates that have come out. I think a lot of the really, really bad stuff has been addressed. I'm sure there's still more work for them to do, and I think they'll evolve over time. But just like any platform you get, there's going to be some security risk, and if somebody bangs away at it long enough, they're going to get in. I don't care what you do.
Yeah, I'm like, are people, there's all kinds of different platforms that people are using, and right now we're being asked to put together so many different, phone and video conferencing systems. So I wonder, are people migrating from Skype to business, or for business to Teams, and how's that going? I think I know John said he was using Teams for stuff. I don't know if you're using it as a voice chat or just as a group collaboration spot.
So we were already deployed on Zoom, but we use Teams collaboration. We've had a number of states who refuse to use Zoom, even though we've kind of explained security has been implemented. So we've started to deploy some voice numbers to staff for Teams as well, for those that are, concerned and think Teams is going to be more secure. They both work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they both work. I agree. Teams has had its issues too. Again, if you bang away at it long enough, you're going to find a way in.
Yeah, there's holes in all of them.
Yep.
What about, has anyone, because we don't have phones, I know at my company, we have an on-premise phone system, and now we're, basically cannot utilize a lot of the functionality, and our phones are broken. I'm wondering, are other people looking at cloud-hosted phones, and have they had any success getting into that, or did they have something that's, just an amazing product that they'd like to share with the group?
We're on a Cisco UCM 11.5, I think, and that's held up pretty well for us, especially with the availability to use Jabber to connect to your actual phone on your desk, so you can be sitting at home with your Jabber account up and take your calls. So you can, if you want to forward those calls to your cell phone, you can do that through the Jabber account. That seems to have worked really well for us. Obviously, the Cisco VoIP's a pretty solid platform. Don't have many issues with it at all.
Mm-hmm. Any other people having any good stories about their cloud-based phone systems?
This is Rick from Hall & Associates. We use Skype. We haven't made the transition to Teams yet, but we've had no problem with using Skype as telephone service. It's worked out great.
Mm-hmm. Is anyone, are any companies, I've seen a lot of talk around different IT forums, and they keep talking about headphones and headsets. Are we giving people headsets? Are we supporting that? Or how's that working, especially in this new work from home environment?
Yeah, we've been buying headsets as well as webcams when we get our hands on them.
Mhm.
And monitors when we can get our hands on them.
Anyone else have some awesome Bluetooth headphones that they're giving out to their staff?
This is Rick again from Hall and Associates. We provide some cheaper $30 headsets to all our new hires that come in, but employees have the option to purchase their own and use those as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, just transitioning a little bit, talking about different cloud services. You know, it seems like I've been talking to the group for a while, so I know it seems to be split between an on-premise and a cloud solution, but I'd like to focus a little bit on some of the cloud stuff. You know, for those of us who aren't on the cloud, how is that cloud infrastructure working for you, especially going through all this big transition that we're going through? You know, looking at services like Azure or, you know, Amazon services or even Google Docs, if that's a thing people are using. How many firms on the call are using services like Panzera or Nasumi? Is that working? You know, especially accessing it over the VPN.
Yeah, Nasumi's working good for us.
So you guys are accessing it over a VPN connection, or do you have a setup where, you know, maybe WorkSpot or Iron Orbit that you can have the computers local to the data?
No, so we're accessing it over the cloud. We've got a heavy duty filer sitting next to our VPN solution. And especially for those people who are doing RDP, they're pulling it off their local office filer. So we've looked at some other alternatives about, you know, with Zscaler or creating a cloud app and doing something that way. But again, I just haven't had the time to work on that.
Has anyone been experimenting with, you know, all those different cloud-based computers like WorkSpot or Iron Orbit? I'm curious because, you know, the cost is high, but if this whole thing makes a shift and we don't have to open up offices, does it make sense to get a system like that? Because now you don't, I mean, yes, the cost is high, but if we don't have to buy offices anymore, I don't know if anyone's dabbling or if talking in your leadership groups or around that topic.
Hi, this is Dragan from Gateway Engineers. We are working, we're using Workspaces from Amazon. And we had a really great response from users. They love it.
Is that going to stop us from buying offices? Are we going to rethink how we structure our companies because of this?
I think it's going to change the way we look at it for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, looking at, you know, there's a cloud part, and then a lot of us could still be on-prem. So I'm wondering what are we doing for our offices and our business continuity and our disaster recovery and our infrastructure? Like, you know, how are we managing our storage growth, and is it still easy to work with this being all remote if we have an on-premise setup?
I think you're going to see probably smaller footprint of office space, still with some type of data center in the smaller footprint. And then I think you're going to see VPN connectivity into that, or more extensive use of a completely cloud-based solution. My only concern, you know, with the cloud base is right now it's great, it's cheap, it's really good, but once they get you sucked in, what's going to happen? You know, are the rates going to go through the roof and force everybody back to an on-prem because you can't afford to be there anymore? You know, that's my concern with the cloud base. You know, we're in a hybrid solution with, you know, obviously with Nasuni. So, you know, we have hot files here, older files staged in the cloud. That's worked out really, really well for us. We were able to really leverage that for our 9 offices. You know, we have VPN connectivity into 4 of them right now, so we're able to kind of split the load. You know, from the smaller offices, we were able to take some people from Cleveland and pump them into one of our smaller offices through the VPN to not eat up as much pipe, and that's really helped us. So I think you're going to see, a smaller footprint in the office space, but yet still an office.
Mm-hmm. Have we had to upgrade our, internet connections in our offices or put extra lines in? And if so, how did that go through this transition where a lot of construction stuff has been shut down?
We were lucky we upgraded before the pandemic, so I can't answer if anybody had any problems getting services, after it started.
I know we worked with Spectrum, and luckily we had an existing fiber line, so it's a lot easier to press some buttons on fiber lines. But as far as getting new lines in, we're trying to do a new office right now, and in the middle of trying to get a fiber line installed into an office in Pennsylvania is tough because they're pretty much closed down. So it's tough. So I don't know if anyone else is going through any struggles like that.
The only struggle I have is we're trying to open a new office in Deerfield Beach, Florida, and all the services got dropped in, everything's there, and Mark and I were supposed to fly down to put all the network gear in and get it set up and get it connected. And the week that we were supposed to go down was the first week they forced everybody to work from home. And Florida started quarantining people as soon as you landed for 14 days. And we decided we didn't want to go sit in a hotel for 14 days and then go hook everything up and then fly home. So, we're kind of stuck right now in limbo waiting for Florida to lift that 14-day quarantine up when you land there. And as soon as they do that, then, we're going to head down and turn that up.
Is anyone using, if they don't use something like WorkSpot or Iron Orbit, are people having any success with any on-premise VDI solutions? Or on-demand application kind of things? How are we getting how about when we're trying to get people working and there's a lot of software updates that need to be done, and people are all on these VPN connections, and some of them are on remote desktops, some of them have laptops at their house. How are we doing deployments of software and getting that working? And how successful is that if they're on a laptop on a VPN?
It takes a while.
So we're running split tunnel, and sometimes the easiest way is just to download it.
I know we've been using PDQ deploy, and it seems to be a pretty amazing program. It allows you to script and do a lot of things. So I don't know if anyone else is using PDQ deploy. And maybe, I think some of the challenges are, people on the VPN may have a different IP, and how do you get all that working? How do you work out all those bugs of deploying software over a VPN?
Yeah, Dragan from Gateway turned us onto that PDQ deploy as well. And we've been using it pretty heavily since he turned us onto it, and we love it. It has worked fairly decent to push things across the VPN, although we haven't really tried to push anything that's really huge over it.
It works really well, for sure.
Well, just changing gears a little bit, looking at, policy-based things and what we're asked to do to help our organizations, what are we doing to help communicate corporately messages to staff in the company about, corporate updates or what we do? What kind of, are we using intranets? Do we have knowledge management systems?
So I have a Zoom meeting with my staff once a week. I attend those Zoom meetings with the upper management, so that's kind of how I push it out to my staff. We're hoping the other managers are doing the same. We do have a corporate-wide Zoom meeting scheduled with our CEO and company president to kind of push out what the policy is going to be for return to work and work from home over the next couple of weeks. And that's coming up later this week, or next week, I'm sorry. And that'll address the questions and concerns of the rest of the employees. So that's one of the ways we're doing it. We're using Zoom.
Are we being asked to set up any kind of static systems like an intranet to help communicate all these messages to the large group of people that may not necessarily be available for a one-time meeting?
We at CTL, what we have done is our CEO releases a weekly update for all the employees, and it is sent as an announcement, so everybody gets the same message. If there is something else which is to be discussed, we do have weekly Zoom meetings with the managers, and we do have a monthly managers meeting, so the updates are done during that time. If it is something which is very urgent and needs to reach everybody, we release it on the dashboard, or we would, if it is even super urgent that everybody needs to know right now, then we have a texting system where we release it on the dashboard and it automatically hits everybody's cell phone as a text.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the various ways we are doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Neil Johnson Henry. We've actually seen our intranet site traffic go up. So people are actually looking to see the stuff that's posted there now, trying to find that kind of information. Then we just have one of our GoToMeeting rooms open all the time for people to jump in and out of, and send people there and hope they read their emails and go from there.
This is Rick from Hall and Associates. We're using SharePoint communication site for our communication, and then our users can download SharePoint on their phone, and they'll get push notifications for any kind of communication that we send out. It works out pretty well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, another item I think is super important for us, and I think something that's completely under a microscope right now are our budgets and everything that surrounds that. So are we being asked to do more with less right now? Are all of our budgets under a microscope more than normal? What about like when we're trying to purchase something, and I think it's getting really difficult for us to buy items, and I'm reading some of in the chat, there's a shortage of everything. So one of the big concerns I always think about when it's hard to buy something, we go to places that can get them faster, but maybe have an extra risk, like, Amazon and Newegg kind of is a supply chain risk. Is anyone concerned about that? Or are we doing anything to, are people asking us about that? Or are we just buying from Amazon and living with that?
We're buying wherever we can, basically, depending on what we need. Sometimes the prices are a little higher. As far as budget in general, spent $100 grand on laptops that I didn't plan to this year, so that's got to come out of the budget somewhere else that I had planned for.
I'm always worried if we have to buy an intelligent switch from Amazon and not directly from a verified supply chain. I don't know if people have had to worry about something like that.
We do worry about it. Yeah.
Well, slightly related to the budgets, there's a lot of changes happening with our licensing. And I was on a phone call yesterday with our Autodesk rep talking about the changes that they're doing to Autodesk. And I don't know when people's renewals are, but it looks like they had an old date, I think, of May 7th, but I think Autodesk has shifted it to August 7th of, buying multi-user seats. And now they're going to only have single user seats, and they're going to have a whole tiered package inside of that. I don't know if anyone is experiencing that or going through any kind of renewal with with Autodesk, but they're making some very significant changes. I don't know if that's impacting people, but I think they're raising the price a lot. Every company seems to be going to some kind of, different model. Basically, I think the most important thing for all these companies is their annual recurring revenue, and they just need that dollar to go up. So they keep coming up with schemes. So I don't know if anyone's suffering with going through renewals or how that's working with license updates through this pandemic.
This is Rod with Corda. We just went through it, and actually it's been a little bumpy. We used to have single license keys. Those are the kinds you could install and just forget about them. Those have gone away and everything's subscription. I will warn everybody, we've just learned in the last few hours that if you assign an AEC license to one of your users, the default setting is to basically, when they log in and they'll see all the licenses to install, don't choose that option, switch to download. The install actually gets just past the Microsoft C++ stuff, and then it fails. We just got directions from Autodesk to not use that procedure, even though it's the default procedure. Set it to download, and then your downloads go fine. Use their Autodesk login, and everything's been fine.
Yeah, it's extremely tricky. I don't know if anyone else is having problems with the conversion and the different things they're doing.
The website's been a nightmare. If anybody else has experienced that, if they were in the middle of a transition.
I think one of the big things that they're doing is they're not letting people buy the multi-user seats anymore. So for those of us who have multi-user seats, they are no longer selling those. And what you have to do is you have to buy a named user seat. And if you do have multi-user seats, they're going to convert them over to single user seats at a 2-to-1 ratio. So that's what they're going to convert that over to. If you don't sign an agreement before August 7th, which was pushed because it used to be, I think, May 7th, but they pushed it out a little bit. Well, I guess, we're coming toward the end of this phone call, and I'm wondering, one of the things that, I could hear it from the call that I think could be suffering is some of the innovation that we were working on before. And I'm just curious about, a lot of us may have 3D scanners or drones. Is that something that we're still supporting through this, and how's that going? I'm curious. Are we still going on sites and doing the scans and getting that stuff set up?
Adam, this is Chad. Yeah, we actually are still doing all our drone scanning, our drone flights. Basically, we have a couple guys, they'll drive separately to the site, meet out at the site, fly the site, then come back in, download the data, and then they leave and they can process it remotely by remote desktop. But they're just as busy. We really haven't seen a downturn in that because the type of projects we're scanning are more industrial size, and hasn't really been a drawback on that.
Yeah, I'm curious, does anybody have time right now for, any of the extra projects we've been working on, artificial intelligence or virtual reality or whatever other disruptive technology that we've been looking at? Or does anyone have time right now? Or are we too underwater to focus on those things?
At CTL, we are continuing to work on all those, as we were already pre-prepared for this, so it has not impacted us much. And we have divided teams to do this job. So the cybersecurity handles the security part of it, the software handles their part of it, the support team handles their part. So realistically, it has not made much of a difference as far as our working is concerned.
Yeah, you guys know I always ask that question. I'm always wondering, what are we doing and how are we pushing it? And I'm just hoping that this hasn't stopped us from doing the innovation that we need to do to make our company successful.
Adam, I think one of the best things from this is it's opened up, I think, the eyes of the people that are holding the cash books to actually these investments, and that they actually do benefit the company in the long run.
I 100% agree with that. Okay, well, I don't want people to miss the governor's update here. So in closing here, Holly has created a Facebook page for us to just continue this discussion. I don't have a Facebook profile yet, but I did sign up with my wife to see if anything was there. She made it a couple weeks, so I don't think there was any post yet, but I'm going to make it an account. I encourage everyone else to join that, and we can pull, content from there and questions, and hopefully help these future discussions. So just, put some posts in there and try to join that group. I think Holly can send that out when she sends the questionnaire out. And so please, after this, fill out the survey that Holly will send out after this call. That feedback really helps us improve these events. I want to thank ACEC Ohio for putting this event together. And finally, I just want to thank all of you guys for joining this conversation, spending some time with us, and make sure you take care of yourselves, and goodbye.
Thanks. See you later.
You.
Thanks.